In our last video, we met young Mark, a rich kid from a wealthy family who couldn't endure hardship and ran away from the mission field. Because of that, the great apostle Paul labeled him as someone who cannot go with us. He became the cause of the biggest dispute in early church history, a real troublemaker. But here's what's amazing. Years later, Paul, in his final moments, writes this from prison as his last wish: "Bring Mark to me, for he is useful to me in my ministry." 2 Timothy chapter 4 verse 11. So what on earth happened to Mark during that gap of time? Today, we're going to trace the incredible reversal, how this troublemaker was transformed into a great apostle who wrote the very first gospel in human history. The person who lifted up Mark after he was rejected by Paul and completely discouraged was none other than his relative, Barnabas. Do you know what the name Barnabas means? It means son of encouragement. Instead of criticizing Mark, Barnabas took him along to his hometown of Cyprus. Barnabas taught Mark that failure is not the end. Through Barnabas's constant encouragement and trust, Mark repented of his mistakes and threw himself back into the mission field, rebuilding his shattered self-esteem. During this time, Mark learned something crucial through Barnabas. Ministry isn't about flashy abilities, it's about perseverance that endures to the end and love that embraces people. Without the second chance that Barnabas gave him, the Gospel of Mark that we read today might never have existed. After his training with Barnabas, Mark became the spiritual son and interpreter for the apostle Peter. Peter loved Mark so much that he called him my son. At that time, Christians in Rome were suffering severe persecution under Emperor Nero. Even the apostle Peter could be killed at any moment, and people were anxious. If all the apostles disappear, who will pass on the stories of Jesus? This is when Mark picked up his pen. He began to record the vivid testimonies about Jesus that he had heard from Peter. This became the very first gospel, the Gospel of Mark. The Gospel of Mark is very unique. Words like immediately and at once appear constantly, describing Jesus's actions and miracles with urgency. It's fast-paced and dynamic, like an action movie. Mark wanted to comfort and encourage the suffering believers in Rome by showing them Jesus, who came as a suffering servant but ultimately triumphed. And finally, Mark reunites with his former mentor, Paul. Amazingly, when Paul was imprisoned in Rome, Mark became a co-worker who stayed by his side, risking his own life. The coward who once ran away because things got hard had now become a faithful worker who wouldn't flee even in the face of death. Paul recognized this transformation in Mark, and in his final letter to Timothy, he confessed, "Bring Mark to me, for he is useful to me," washing away the bitterness of the past and acknowledging Mark as a fellow worker worthy of being his successor. Mark, the naked fugitive from Gethsemane, the deserter from the mission field, but he met good mentors and rose above his failures. He recorded Peter's testimony and passed it down to all of humanity. He stood by Paul until the very end, completing a story of reconciliation and faithfulness. Is someone calling you a failure, or do you want to give up on yourself? Remember, Mark, in God, failure is not the end, it's merely the beginning of an even greater story.